to the Wednesday, June 3rd edition of the Clemson Dubcast. Hope everybody out there is doing okay during some really heavy times, both away from Clemson and now at Clemson, with the revelations yesterday about Danny Pearman, Clemson's assistant coach, and DJ Greenley, former tight end. We have a story that just posted a little while ago on sort of our latest sort of feel for what's going on there. And of course, as with everything these days, very fluid situation, so things can change in a hurry. The title sponsor of the podcast since the very day we began, Parham Smith and Archingham Law Firm in downtown Greenville. I've known Blake Smith for a long time. I guess about 10 or 12 years ago, he helped me with the situation involving some possible medical malpractice, gave me some great advice, and it wasn't just preferential treatment. That's how he and his staff, which includes Brooke Archinhold, handle every case. They are founded on a dedication to helping injured individuals throughout South Carolina. Free consultations. Phone number 864-990-4581 or online at parhamlaw.com, P-A-R-H-A-M law.com. Another loyal supporter of the Dubcast is Blackacre Law Firm in Greenville, a subsidiary of Parham Smith and Archinhold. Blackacre helps South Carolina residents achieve their dreams of home ownership by providing experienced professional representation for real estate closings. Attention to detail is crucial in real estate law. Blackacre is committed to making sure nothing gets by them preparing residential or commercial closings. Blackacre also offers estate planning services for their clients in the Greenville area. Find out more about Blackacre at 864-326-3507. Okay, in light of everything that's going on, we wanted to consult Harold Coleman and Patrick Sapp, both African-American former Clemson football players, to talk about some of the issues of the day or the days, but mainly just to listen, something maybe we all need to do a better job of these days. So we'll start with Harold Dutch Coleman. Enjoy. All right, joined by my friend Harold Dutch Coleman, popular media personality. You're on Twitter way more than I want to be for health reasons, insanity reasons, former walk-on. You were a walk-on, right?
Yeah.
Walk-on Clemson football player. How are you?
I'm good, man. I guess I could say exhausted, but that's normal. Exhausted is normal, but I didn't think there'd be another level of exhaustion. But it just proves that we can do more than we think we can do.
Yeah. So I guess the freshest part of this story is certainly Clemson related. Unfortunately, as we learned yesterday afternoon and into the evening and then this morning, your first reaction to the revelation that Danny Pearman 3 years ago in a practice used the N-word toward, I guess not calling DJ Greenley that, but directed at him.
All right. Now, let me ask you this. Can I use the N-word throughout the... No, I'm just kidding. I want to address the people that are angry that they can't use it and wish they could use it too, and it's not fair that some people could use it. That's aside. But
isn't that a whole other debate altogether? Like,
oh my goodness, yeah. Like,
I mean, shouldn't that be separate from... Should it be separate from this issue or not?
Yeah, I think it can be, because if you think about, like, when me and you were having a conversation, casually, we talk on the phone regularly, and we don't use profanity. Like, we don't speak that way, right? We choose not to speak that way. Now, I'm sure you and I, we go other places, and people are freely speaking that way, right? And that doesn't mean we join in. That doesn't mean I have a problem with it. I have a choice to leave. Like, I have a bunch of different things I can do, right? And I can extend that to the environments that I choose to go into. Like, I'm playing basketball at the court, and there's people using the N-word or cursing and things of that nature. I choose to accept to be in that environment or whatever. That's on me. Now, there are places that I can't and won't, and we should be able to use it. And that's corporate places where, there's policy and maybe around your grandparents or your parents, you don't want to use certain words and all that stuff. So it baffles me that people are able to accept and manage language, but with that word, they're like, well, why do they get to use it?
Right.
Just like, I don't want to use it. Like, you know what? Go ahead, use it. Go ahead, have fun, have at it. But it's not hard for me to explain why. Well, me and Larry choose not to use profanity in our conversation, but why do those guys get to use profanity in their conversations? It's a choice, and I think if you want to choose to use it, go ahead. If you don't. And it's not hard to understand why a certain group would use a word. I have female cousins that call each other the B word, right?
Right.
Just in jest and in playfulness, right? But I would never do that because I know what they're doing in their relationship and how they're dealing with each other. And I'm not dying to be able to say, well, why can't I call you guys a B? Like, I mean, it's not fair that you guys get to do it, but I can't. Like, I don't get that whole line of questioning. But
Does it bother you when when you hear African Americans using it?
Bother me is kind of strong because I understand. It is what it is. It's a term of endearment. Like, so I choose not to use it. In any opportunity that we get on that subject, then I can express myself about it. So I'm not afraid to tell guys not to use it if we're talking about that. But with someone using it, I go, hey, don't use that word. Like, no, I don't do that. But let's say we're sitting around the table, like we were sitting at the picnic table after we were playing basketball last night, and we were talking about issues and different things. Not even the current climate. We weren't even talking about that. We were just talking about other stuff to the young guys that were playing with us, right? That would have been a great time to bring up the use of the N-word. It wouldn't have been me admonishing them or correcting them. It'd have been like, hey, man, you guys use the N-word. Like, why do you guys still use that word? And didn't give my opinion. And then they would listen. And I have done that before. Just so happens we were talking about other things last night. So that's as far as I would take it. I would offer that wisdom, if you want to call it, on why they shouldn't do it. But I completely understand it. I used it when I was younger, when I was a much, much younger person, when I didn't realize the damage that it causes, even when we use it. But it's one of those things where if you're really stuck on that, I really kind of question like where your heart and mind is, if that's what you're complaining about.
Right. If that's the biggest issue you draw from this Clemson story with the peer, right. If that's the takeaway or the main position.
All right. Now, and I will say this about the pyramid thing, because I've been kind of vocal about this stuff in general. I was defending Clemson initially because I've been around that program. I've been inside it. I've seen things that other people haven't seen. And I'm completely confident in what they do with respect to, in particular, African-American males, but all of the student athletes there. And I have always been impressed, and I've always held them to a higher standard because that's my school. I do the same thing at Penn State. I hold them to a higher standard, and they satisfy the standard. And I keep checking back to make sure. And I'm privy to a lot of conversations personally between coaches and players, between coaches and coaches and administrators. And I've always been satisfied, and they've exceeded my expectations on what they have for those young men, the opportunities, the demands they make for them, especially with African Americans in today's climate. And so I was defending that when I saw the other schools coming out with these statements and Clemson hadn't. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, but some of those schools that are doing that, they're horrible with their African-American students. And I'm like, why are they even pretending like they care? So I started defending Clemson from that standpoint right away.
And then,
yes, the pyramid stuff. Yeah.
So okay, and I guess I need to point out we're talking here at 11:57 a.m. on Wednesday, so stuff could change at the moment we hang up. But the timeline the rough sketch, the essential parts of it go like this. Canyon Tuttle responds to Dabo's statements Monday and saying that's not enough. You're just being on brand or whatever, and brings up the account of an unnamed assistant at that time by Tuttle using the N-word, and it kind of just sort of being glossed over by Dabo. And then also around the same time when the sit-ins were going on at Sykes Hall, Dabo, I don't know what the word is, suggested, I don't want to say ordered.
He rather not they get involved, or try not to be too involved, which sounds to me like you have a choice and that you absolutely can go and do whatever you got to do.
Well,
right?
and it's very important how it was said by Dabo, and we have no idea. We don't know how it was said. Now, if he said, if any of y'all go up there, you're going to be running stairs, like, that's one thing. I don't think that was said. I think it's more like, if you feel strongly about it, go do it, but please don't. I would rather you not be a distraction. I don't have as big of an issue with that.
Right, because I think at the end of the day, the kids felt like they had an option, and that's what you want to give them. Now, I can tell you, like I was telling young people about going out on these protests. I said, look, man, I was your age at one time. I know what you're feeling right now. I know you're upset. I said, I'd rather you not go out there because I don't know how it's going to escalate. If you do, be careful. So that's me telling you directly, I'd rather you not go because I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm saying at the same time, go ahead, just be careful. So that's basically, if you imagine Dabo looking at them as his kids, he doesn't know what's about to happen. He doesn't know anything about this protest stuff. So he's like, basically, be careful. But he didn't say you can't go. He's just letting you know that he's concerned. Mm-hmm. And I give him a pass on that because, of course, there was participation, and I didn't hear of any blowback or anything like that. So I give him this. So Larry, you're gonna have to keep us on track because I'm gonna go all over the place. Right. This is crazy. And
there was participation by football players in the city.
I thought there were a couple players that were there. That I heard that made an appearance there. I don't know to what degree or to what extent.
What I recall is a couple, including Christian Wilkins, showing up briefly and bringing pizzas or something. And Christian,
there was something,
yeah. Christian giving a short and sweet speech saying, "Hey, we support you. Keep it up, whatever." And now we got to go. So it was very short.
Short. I think it was a small group, and I think Kelly Bryant was a part of it. So. And I think there were a handful of them that still went, and so I think, like you said, short of telling them that they can't go, then Dabo's really just behaving like a parent at that point.
But in light of current events, doesn't look good for that revelation. However, it was spoken 3 years ago to come to light. Okay, and then the timeline continues to, so Tuttle is the whistleblower. Like DJ Greenlee merely, due to some very good reporting by Matt Connolly of the State, who managed to get a hold of Greenlee, not even knowing he was the guy that was addressed to by Pierman, called up Greenlee asking if he knew anything about it, and Greenlee said, "Well, yeah, I was the one," and very matter-of-factly says that, I don't think he meant any harm by it. I think he was correct in my use of it, and I think Matt had a brief conversation with Greenlee, who had another call coming in, and so that was what the first story was the product of. And so then that is what Clemson reacts to with its statement from Danny Pierman, which the problem as I see it now is Pierman's statement sort of hinged on that. I was correcting him. I used the word in telling him not to use the word. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so you go to bed last night, or I went to bed last night thinking, okay, not good, but still not awful, at least in my opinion. If he's using the word to say not to use the word. But then Matt Connolly talks to Greenlee again. I guess Greenlee might have called him back to give further clarity to what he was saying on a brief call before, and it was a different. What Greenlee said in the clarified account did not jibe with what Pearman said in terms of I just said it. I used the word to tell him not to use the word. Is that where you are right now?
Yeah. So I think Pearman was being as general in his description as Greenlee was being in his initial description.
Right.
So generally speaking, I think Pearman was correct. It doesn't make him any more correct, but it does bring light to that it wasn't some vicious attack on him where he was being called the N-word.
Sure.
So we definitely got to use that context. And to Kenyon Tuttle, he didn't help by not insinuating, saying that directly, that someone was called the N-word. To me, that's light years different than what we're talking about. So now that doesn't excuse Pearman, but saying, a player was called the N-word by a coach is targeted. It's directly targeted at the program as we allow coaches to call players the N-word. And that's just not what happened. Even if you look at DJ Greenlee as he offers us more clarity, he wasn't attacking him, calling him that name. And that's why I kind of look at Kenyon Tuttle, and I don't directly blame him, but I think that his initial take on it was intentional and targeted towards the program, because you would otherwise you would just say a guy just used the word, not he called somebody that. Is that clear? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the picture that comes to mind when it came, I think a common sort of picture that comes to mind after Kenyon tweets that is you're envisioning a coach saying, "Get the hell over here, you damn,"
Exactly.
Which is horrible. I mean, the worst of the worst. So yeah, not as bad as that, but still, I don't see, this is just my opinion. In preparing a statement, you don't react solely. You don't hinge it on what another person said. You lay all your cards out on the table.
Right.
If you're, I'm not saying Pearman, they're being dishonest or anything like that, but the fact that it latched on to the one part of Greenlee's initial account of he was correcting my saying it. And again, this is just Greenlee's account. I'm not saying that's factual. That's just his description of what happened. So Pearman is just as free to come out and say, "Hey, I didn't say that," So,
but more importantly, I didn't mean even you can say I didn't mean it that way,
right.
Because if he felt he was using it to make a point, that could be true as much as that's not how DJ heard it.
Mm-hmm.
Because he can be like, "Well, my goal was to try to teach you and show you how bad that sounds." But that's not how DJ took it. And so both of them are correct in that point. Well, that's not how I took it. You shouldn't say that word to me.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a couple of things that are happening here, though. If it's true, and correct me if I'm wrong, multiple people witnessed this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being a part of a football team, and myself and many other teams, if this was bad on any level, this conversation is going to continue. It's going to continue in the locker room. It's going to continue in the dorm rooms later. It's going to continue the next day on the field. And it will leak out. Because we're talking about this. Somebody's girlfriend is going to hear about it. Somebody's best friend that's not a part of the football team is going to hear about it. Somebody's parent is going to hear about it. And the moment that somebody's parent doesn't like somebody's playing time, then they're going to recall this, right?
Right.
There's so many levels that this should have gotten out in the past 3 years if this was intended maliciously, or if any one of those 100 and something people thought it had any malicious intent. That's the first point, right? You see what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
There's no way you keep the N-word out from getting out. If any one singular person thought that this was malicious, it would have gotten out. That's the first part of this, Larry. And that's why I'm sitting there like that. I have to assume that this wasn't as bad as even we're talking about. Now, again, none of this excuses Pearman. I'm just saying this is peculiar to me. The other thing is Larry Greenlee, his father, for those who don't know, works on staff. And I'm sure Larry is not some soft back dude that's not going to step up and say something. If he has a problem, he's going to say something, period. That if he felt his son was being attacked in any way, that there would have been a little more to this. And then you go to the fact that that DJ, although he said it took him some time to forgive him, he played for that guy every day, and he took the high road. It's going to be a lot harder for me to take the high road if you attack me with that word, and I felt like your intentions were negative. Pyramid's not the coolest guy in the world. He's what the young guys would consider old and ratchety, like one of those guys who don't get it. He's not cool. He doesn't have that cool card in his back pocket, right? So he can't rely on that. So it sounds like DJ took all those into account, and I'm speculating. I'm assuming he took all that into account, and he said this old guy didn't mean it that way. Still shouldn't have said it. I'm angry, but this old guy didn't really mean it like that. So I'm going to forgive him. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and while it might not have been super malicious, there's also the thought of, with what we're going through right now, with Dabo being criticized for maybe not attacking the issue head on in his statement on Monday. Not that Dabo was wrong or screwed up or offended people, but just the mere notion. I'm not advocating it, but people are, and I don't think it's unreasonable, including former players are saying this, that, he didn't go far enough. He didn't specifically confront it like, say, some others have, including Trevor Lawrence did late last week. So is this, while Pyramid Zach not necessarily malicious, is it reasonable to say it represents another instance of Dabo not doing enough to rectify the situation? Because that is, that appears to be what some of the issue is, that it wasn't, not that he should have fired him on the spot or whatever. I'm not saying that, but that maybe it was, and not shoved under the rug, but maybe not sufficiently addressed with the people who had a problem with it.
So there's a couple of things there, right? So
yeah, there's a lot of things. I'm long-winded like you.
Yeah, why didn't Dabo? Yeah, because why didn't Dabo react more? Well, maybe Dabo didn't react more because DJ didn't react more,
right?
And he left it in DJ's hands. Like if DJ had demanded that something happened, then DJ might have been like, I can't play for that guy. Then now Dabo says, all right, I got a problem. Pyramid, you got to go. Like, I can't have you. This guy's right. You said that, and now you have a problem, and then you're gonna have to resign, or I'm gonna have to fire you, or whatever. But when DJ's acting like, well, I forgive him, everything's okay, and he's talking to Dabo, then you got to think Dabo's like, well, I'm gonna talk to Pyramid about that and be like, man, you gotta be smarter than that. You can't be saying stuff like that. And you're this kid's saving your job because he's not coming after you. But you can't be doing it. So then now that Dabo's showing him grace like DJ's showing him grace. And so now you get caught in that space right there when people say, well, why wasn't he let go for saying that? Well, he's offering the same grace that DJ was offering him, right? And so he's following DJ's lead, DJ's family's lead. If Larry's like, nah, if he's talking to his son and he's like, nah, he don't need to be fired. He got the point. And then now they made that decision in-house. That completely explains what happened. But I want to go back to Trevor Lawrence and Dabo. So, to me, Trevor Lawrence's statement was about as good as it gets from a kid his age, right?
Whew, yeah.
And I think that when people saw that, a kid his age that hadn't seen, half of the stuff that Dabo's seen, that you would expect more from Dabo. That's where we are. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but that's where people are, especially the people that already have something against Dabo. So you take Dabo, and Dabo's great. Like I said, I've been around Dabo when he's been admonishing players. I knew Dabo's dreams and his vision and his system before he ever became a head coach. He shared that type of stuff with me. So I've been around him a lot. Now, Dabo exists a lot in the spiritual realm. Like that is his why. That is who he is, right? That's his source. Also, Dabo came up in an environment where no one ever gave him anything. He worked hard. He did. So, he believes more than anybody the American dream, and not just because it's written on paper, but it worked out for him. Like, I did what I was supposed to do. I worked really, really hard. I fought through adversity, and this stuff works, guys. And he's telling his guys, this stuff works. Also, I believed in God. I had faith that all these things are going to come to pass. So and it worked for him. So this is honestly who he is, and he really believes this stuff works. So this is what he's teaching his kids. And in the sports arena, it's 100% valid. Like you talk about hard work, stick-to-itiveness, having faith in your brother beside you. Like all those things that are biblical worked exactly as they were written for Dabo. So this is his teaching. When he came out with this thing, two things you gotta when you have a bully, and I'm calling racism a bully, you can't point at the bully. You got to punch the bully in the mouth, and that's what Trevor did. He came right at the bully, and he said, "You're not going to bully me," and he punched the bully in the mouth. And people are looking at what Dabo said is pointing at the bully. Hey, I told you once, I told you twice, I told you 3 times, don't do that. And people are like, that's not going to work. And when you take Dabo's response, that's who he is. It's not like he was walking away from a fight, but it's like he thinks about words like grace and working through and working hard. And what hurt him worse than anything, in my opinion, Larry, this is my opinion, when you're talking to black folks, and you have black friends, I'm sure, I'm one of them, you've come across that black friend or those black friends, and you know how big the Bible is in the black culture. Black folks, since they've been introduced to Jesus, have clutched the Bible. It was a means of controlling black folks, to be quite honest, right? They know the word. Like you talk to my grandmother, you talk to the elder people, my friend, they know that word backwards and forwards, and they've tried their best to live that word. Yet and still, they've dealt with these harsh realities in the physical realm. They've dealt with these monsters, these murderers, these crooked people. They've dealt with that. And they've always relied on the word. So when I ask someone for help, like Dabo, and you give me the word, I already know the word. I already know you're not helping me one bit when you tell me what the word says. So Dabo doesn't connect that, but I'm just saying this is where the disconnection is, that Dabo is honestly trying to help by giving them the word. And they're like, no, brother, we know the word. We need help in the physical realm. Use the word. Like whatever the word says, then do that stuff in the physical realm to help us beat this bully. And that means you standing beside us. That means you calling it what it is. That means you putting your fists up if you have to. In the physical realm, I need you to do what God says, not to say what God says, but to do what God says. So there's a big disconnect between Dabo and the black community in that sense, that no, don't. We already know Jeremiah. We already know Luke. We already know Mark. We know Jesus. In the physical realm, we need you. We need words like ally. We need words like racism. We need words like police brutality. We need descriptions and actions where I'm going to stand beside you. I'm going to do whatever it takes to help you fight those things that I just called out. And that's the dividing line right there, is that they didn't get that. And he needed to say that. And Dabo, better than anybody, can actually do those things, because in his life, the system that he's built for those boys there has created those things. But he needs to communicate that effectively, that this is what I'm going to do. This is what I am doing. This is what we have done. And this is why we have done those things. And this is what I'm going to do more, because I even see now that that's not enough.
Rice is a staple in my household. Man, we must cook it 6, 7, 8 times a week with so many different dishes. Well, here's an opportunity to have an exceptionally high-quality rice. Charleston Gold Rice, delivered to your front door. Good friend Don Quattlebaum, Clemson class of 76, produces Charleston Gold Rice at Georgetown's White House Plantation in South Carolina's old tidal rice fields. The property on the PD and Black Rivers dates to 1735. My family has eaten this rice, and we love it. You can absolutely taste the difference. Find Charleston Gold Rice at GeeChyBoyMill.com. That's GeeChie boymill.com. Phone number 843-631-0077. Also ask them about their wholesale opportunities. If you're in the Eastern Midlands and PD area and you're in any way interested in buying and selling a home, commercial property, land, need to consider reaching out to Uptown Realty. They're based out of Sumter and run by a friend of mine, Patrick Enzer, big Clemson guy, used to cover the Tigers in a newspaper capacity, longtime supporter of Tiger Illustrated, longtime listener to the Dubcast. The home buying process should be an enjoyable experience, so let Patrick and his staff do all the heavy lifting. All you got to do is pick up the phone and call 803-774-0435 or go to uptownrealtysc.com. It's almost like what was so direct and poignant in what Trevor said. I will never understand, what it's like to be in my brother's shoes. Maybe Dabo's not position, but sort of thought or feeling is it doesn't matter what you've been through. You can overcome just like I did. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yep, honest, and he's honest. He. There's a lot of people that say what you just said, and they haven't been through a thing. So Dabo is honestly saying that, having been through stuff, so he really believes that. So we're not dealing with somebody who's just saying it to say it. So we have to get that part of who Dabo is. And we got into the thing with Bomani Jones when Bomani predicted. I was tweeting at I ended up defending Dabo, and then I ended up defending Bomani on Twitter.
You can't do that. You got to take a side, dude.
It's crazy. It's crazy because I'm like, no, Bomani is right in the fact that he basically predicted what Dabo was going to do because he knows Dabo from what he's done in the past. Now that doesn't make what Dabo did wrong. It just because Bomani actually gave Dabo credit for being who he is, but just said that wasn't what was needed.
Right.
So, and people were all over Bomani, and I'm sitting there like, no, he was right. He said what Dabo was, which was not a bad thing. It's just that it wasn't needed. It's like taking a knife to a gunfight. You took a knife and he said, no, we need a gun. And Dabo wasn't a gun, and people got defensive. And Bomani's already a figure because he fights the bully racism, and then he gets called a racist for fighting the bully racism.
Right.
And it's amazing to me.
And it's like there's no notion of conversation. It's what, like Paul Strelo was going back and forth with Bomani yesterday on Twitter, and it was, to me, it looked like an intelligent disagreement, respectful disagreement, but I'm sure there are plenty of people who were like, yeah, go get that evil racist Paul,
Right. And Paul, to me, Paul knows more. I'm assuming Paul knows more about Dabo than Bomani. And the problem I had with Bomani was the conclusions that he was drawing. And I'm like, bro, you don't have enough information to draw those conclusions. Now, I do understand your analysis, but your conclusion is wrong. And I imagine Paul is like, hey, man, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but that conclusion is off. That's not what it is. Even with your analysis, which is fair, you need more information to actually come to a conclusion.
And it's not like Dabo is this all-knowing, infallible voice who speaks nothing but truth. As he admitted, one of the most interesting parts of that teleconference on Monday was when Josh Needleman of the Post and Courier asked him about the 2016 rant about the Colin Kaepernick situation, when Dabo, among other things, including, saying that's not the way to do it, hold a press conference, whatever, you're a distraction to your team. He said, we're not some fallen country that's fallen apart. If if you think this is bad, go to some other country. And I know what he was trying to say. He wasn't saying, move to another, just leave. If you don't like it, leave. I think he was saying compare our problems to a lot of the problems of the rest of the world. I think that was the point, which is not a bad point. But even then, as a leader of a football team, those words didn't go over well. And I think he apologized to the team at the time for becoming a distraction. And then on Monday, he said, yeah, that was probably, actually, I think he said that was definitely harsh, a little harsh. So he even admits that he doesn't get it right all the time.
And Larry, I have a personal relationship with Dabo, and I feel like I can say whatever I want to him because I have. So that's why I feel that way. But the problem isn't just Dabo, I'll say, right? Like it's like he has grown and he has admitted errors, right? I think the problem is more of the fan base where they deified this man that ends up hurting him because now he's under pressure to be perfect because we've put him on this pedestal. And I'm like, he's not God. Like, he can be wrong. Give him room to fail. Let him fail and come back and learn and understand, gain understanding and all those things. But it's like we deify him, and he's the only one that gets hurt from that. Not us. He gets hurt from it, and we have to stop doing that. Like he's going to be wrong sometimes. He's going to make mistakes, and we can call him out without it meaning that we hate him. We can disagree with him without meaning that he's still our favorite football coach, or he's still a great guy. He's still a great Christian because there's only been one perfect. If you're a believer, and to think that everything Dabo says is correct is hurting Dabo, not the fan base. So stop doing that.
Do you have an opinion on what should happen with Danny Pearman?
If it were me, I would probably walk away with apologies. I mean, he's been in the game for a long time, so it's not like we're impact. I'm sure he's ready for retirement anyway. He's probably going to realize it's the best choice he ever made. But if I were him, I would walk away and say, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I probably should have considered this even more back then. But again, this is more about the reaction by the fan base and the media and stuff like that. And Larry, I gotta get on this too. I told you we're gonna be all over the place. This whole conversation today that we're having about police brutality, about racism. When I talk to people, and some of the people that I talk to are very ignorant, and I'm sure some of the people that I'm calling ignorant may be feeling that some of the people they talk to are ignorant, right? But I have people that'll say stuff to me like I'm defending cops that are trying to save their own lives, and I'm sitting there like, brother, if there's a cop and there's a bad guy with a gun, I'm on the cop side. I'm like, yo, you can shoot that joker. Like, do not let him get the drop on you. I don't care what. Yo, you got to go home. This guy has a gun. Go for it. I'm all for that, right? I'm team officer. But I'm arguing for people who are unarmed. And the reason that those deaths are occurring, it doesn't begin at the time that the officer fires the gun. That's not when the problem started, and that's not where the solution is going to come from. The solution is going to come from the average everyday police stop that I'm stopped on, and my character is assassinated, and my humanity is lowered. I'm treated like less than a man, and I'm being super respectful, and I'm being very polite, and I'm being very, very accommodating to the officer, and he still treat me like crap. So it starts there, right? Now, I didn't get murdered, obviously. I didn't get beat up, not as an adult. I got slapped around as a kid. But that's where it is. That's where the problem is, because if those interactions, my daily interactions are where they are, the murders don't happen. And if I say something to an officer in disgust with the way he's treated me, I've escalated the situation. And now my life's in danger. So I have to stand there and take it. like less than the man I am. I'm educated. I don't use drugs. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't do anything. I've followed all the rules that society told me to follow in order to separate myself from the criminal element and the things that are going to get me treated differently. And yet I'm still treated exactly like the criminal element. And it doesn't matter where I am, what I'm wearing, what I say. That's it. So the correction is not at the point where people are getting shot. So people say, police officers, they have to be trained better. No, they already don't like me. When they don't value my life enough to give me a second benefit of the doubt, not even a second of it, and I'm murdered, dead right there. They already don't like me. And so I'm sitting there like, we have to correct the part about the image that we have where when something happens to Pyramid, people want to hear more. Well, I got to hear more details. Well, what context was it in? Well, how did he say it? You want to dig for more information. But when it's a black guy, you assume the worst and you throw him away. Now, I'm not saying everybody, but everybody's going to have to hear it. You throw that guy away. And I'm going to bring up something old. Steve Smith. Steve Smith with Clemson basketball, for anybody who's listening is not familiar, doesn't get fired, but his contract's not renewed over some statements that he allegedly made, right?
Yep.
I was kind of upset about this because Steve Smith is a friend of mine. And this guy, first of all, I didn't hear that I need to hear more. I heard throw Steve Smith out. Or if there's a chance he says something negative about Clemson football, our precious football, our God, throw him out. No, I want to hear more. Pyramid could have done way more damage to the Clemson program by using that word than Steve Smith ever did. And this is what happened with Steve Smith, that people didn't take the time to investigate, Larry. The transcript of the court proceedings literally exonerated Steve Smith from any and everything. When the guy was talking about his conversation with Steve Smith during the recruitment of KJ McDaniel to Clemson, when Steve Smith wasn't at Clemson during the recruitment of KJ McDaniel. And they're sitting there having a whole conversation about this. I'm sitting there like, Steve Smith wasn't here when he was being recruited. Is he talking about somebody else other than Steve Smith? Why didn't Clemson come out and say, first of all, there's a flaw in that because Steve Smith was not here during KJ McDaniel's recruitment. He couldn't have had conversations with Christian Dawkins about KJ McDaniel. He couldn't have had anything to do with that whole process. That's number one. Number two, anybody that understands the recruiting world knows that one of the things when you go into the recruiting world, you're like an undercover cop, even as a recruiter. I got to find out who knows what, who said what, who did what, because I need to know how I can get in. I need to know what Auburn's doing. What did Auburn say? In order to do that, I got to talk to some characters that I might not normally talk to, but I need to get info from my head coach to find out where we are, who's doing what. And Steve Smith found himself in that situation trying to get information, and he has to play the game kind of like, yeah, I'm one of you guys. And he's talking about the program, and someone's trying to act as if Clemson's a small kid on the block. He's like, no, we got resources, and he brings up the football team. Look what we do with our guys there. We take care of our guys. We're a big program. We're big time. This isn't, this is the same school that houses Clemson football. Clemson basketball can be the same thing. I need to get in these circles with the Zions of the world because they're seeing us as small. And as he's having that conversation, he has to have it in a street way, like we're talking about this. And he gets thrown in the trash without anybody trying to find out more. He just gets kicked out. And it didn't even take much to find out that he was not what it appeared to be. And the fans threw him out. And that begins with the same, and this bias is not malicious, I don't think, but it's that quick to judgment thing. When it's somebody black, when it's somebody white, I need to hear more. Well, what happened before, 15 seconds before the video? well, we didn't see what happened when he was out of sight for a half a second. Things like that, where we as people that are observing these things happening, we have to be more genuine and more honest and more open to fairness, and we have to check ourselves and our own biases and make sure that we're being consistent in our evaluation of any of these topics, because they're all tough topics, but we got to check ourselves.
And fans also have a bias. I guess I don't want to say colorblind, but it both ways on how useful is that person to us. Okay, so okay, so we're talking Danny Pearman, tight ends coach, not the superstar assistant by any stretch.
You're being nice. You're being nice because you're saying what the fans think. So you're being nice right now.
And so some fans. I'm not advocating this. Some fans have been all over him for his recruiting for a long time, or lack thereof, allegedly. So if this were Brent Venables, if we took 100 fans who are this morning right away saying why is Pearman still here, how many of them would be saying why is Venables still here? How many of them would not be taking the opposite approach?
We need to hear more.
This is so overblown, we need to hear more. So the usefulness of it, their utility, their status as like if Steve Smith landed Zion Williamson.
Or Zion said, "I ain't coming here unless Steve Smith is still there." Then all of a sudden we change.
Right. If he had Clemson closed the deal on Zion and Steve Smith been the superstar in that recruitment, then how much would perceptions be different in handling the revelations that came to light in the FBI scandal?
Yep. And we got to be tough in our criticisms of ourselves, right? In our evaluations of ourselves, because if you can admit that about that, then you can admit that about the race thing. These inherent biases that are not always malicious, but we're programmed, man. It's like we're programmed in all these things, not just race, but we're programmed in all these things. And that doesn't mean that your ability to check yourself doesn't mean you don't still have those things. I still have those biases, but I've learned how to check myself so then that the biases stop the moment that I recognize them. I'm able to recognize them, then they don't become a part of my filter. And it's a continuous checking process because none of us are perfect, but we've been running along as a nation unchecked. The average citizen has been unchecked. And now we're learning, I hope that we're learning to check ourselves and that, man, these biases are slipping in and we're not even paying attention. Let's manage these better and let's make this place better. And I believe we can do it. It's just going to take a lot of work because, man, my white friends, man, they're feeling targeted right now for stuff they didn't do. And I'm sitting there like, join the club, bro. I've been targeted my whole life for stuff I didn't do. And I have had to work my way through it. And now my white friends are being unfairly targeted like they're racist because the white race is in the crosshairs right now. And now, like I've done my almost 48 years of life, you got to stand there and you got to take it and you got to work your way through it and you got to become better through it. And it's made me go on and do better and all those things. And yes, it hurts and it hurts again and it hurts again. But welcome to the club. And it is not fair. But like people have always told me, well, such and such percent of black people in the country, but they commit such and such percent of the crime. All right, so now you're in that position. You're in that precarious position of having to deal with stuff that you have nothing to do with, and you got to pay the piper. And welcome to the club. The good news is you can ally with black folks, and they will understand where you're coming from, and they'll take your hand and help you get through it, just like because we know how to get through that.
Is this going to ultimately turn into a positive? And that's such a terribly blanket statement. Trying to boil it all down to positive or negative. Is a large part of our society going to grow from this?
Honestly, this feels different. This feels different. But the cynic in me says 6 months from now, things will be back to normal and people will be back to protecting their own and not giving a damn about anybody else but their own. And, 6 months from now, we'll slip right back into that comfort zone. I hope that doesn't happen. But that's the cynic in me. When all this stuff, when George Floyd is buried and gone and Breonna Taylor and, Ahmaud Arbery, when those things kind of go away, then we'll be back to only addressing it when the next Arbery happens or something like that. And I tell you this, Larry, I did a sensitivity training with the Clemson Police Department years ago. Mm-hmm. When one of my guys, and this is again goes back to the root of the problem. One of my guys called me crying one morning. Him and his buddies have been thrown in jail for something that he claimed they did not do. They were pulled over for suspected drunken driving and all this other stuff. Then, according to the police report, they acted like complete animals, like they were out of control. They were just, I mean, if you read the police report, you'd be like, wow, these kids lost their damn mind. What's wrong with them? So anyway, they get arrested. So the kid calls me, and the kid has a 4.0 at Clemson. He's since gone to med school and became a doctor. This is the type of kid we're dealing with. They didn't drink or anything like that. So I knew right away when they said he was drunk driving and stuff like that, that was going to be a problem. Now, if you recall, at one point, Clemson got the dash cams on their car. This is literally like weeks after Clemson went to the dash cam videos on a police car. So this guy calls me crying, this happened to me. I can't believe this, man. I was thrown in jail. My life's going to be ruined. I'm applying to med school, bro. I'm like, calm down. What happened? He tells me what happened. And I told him to go to the police station and request a tape. And I said, and then call me when you get the tape. So I called the mayor, and I set up a meeting with the mayor. And I go down and I sit with the mayor, and I have the tape, and I hadn't even watched the tape yet. And I said, Your Honor, I want to have a discussion. This happened, that happened, yada, yada, yada. So, of course, the mayor has a copy of the police report. I have a copy of the police report, and we're sitting there, and we read the police report. And the police report is just all over the place. The kids were acting like fools. And he's looking at it, he goes, well, sometimes kids get out of hand, and sometimes they just, I said, I understand, Your Honor. I said, I understand. I said, how about we just watch the videotape? I had watched the videotape. I'm trusting my guy. They put the videotape in, and sure enough, my guys are standing there with their heads down and their hands together, saying yes sir, no sir, yes or no sir the whole time, while the officers are the ones acting like animals, pushing them with their chest, yelling in their face, spitting in their face, doing everything, trying to provoke them to a response. And the kids stood there taking it, being treated like less than the young, educated men they were, trying to become. And they were the ones abused. The mayor stops the tape and begins to apologize and say, Your Honor, with all due respect, this is where I talk. I said, I don't care about these kids. They have me. They have somebody advocating for them. I said, but this piece of paper here pisses me off, and it angers me to no end that this is the same piece of paper that's gotten plenty of people arrested over the past 100 or so years in Clemson, right? Your officer's account of what happened. This is the Bible for these incidents, and this is a piece of crap. How many people have been imprisoned because of a document like this? And that's the root of it all, is that they're able to operate. And now the only reason that we're even having this discussion, Larry, and that people are opening their hearts and minds is because they have to. They've been forced to, because they have video. And we need video. We can't take the word of another human being that is unarmed, that has no history of some of these things that they're being accused of. And that's it. And the law enforcement is guilty of it. The general public is guilty of it, because if I die tomorrow in an incident like this, knowing my character, the Clemson fan base knowing my character, is not going to be enough, because that's about 0.01% of the population that's going to hear my story. And the rest are going to assume that I was some ignorant N-word that obviously did something to anger that poor cop. And that's it.
You have quite the schedule today of celebrity radio appearances, so I don't want to keep you too long. But I want one last question. You played football. You obviously have known a lot of football players over the years. If a player like Sammy Watkins, dreadlocks, gold teeth, he's from Florida, is really, 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 really good at football. He's worshipped 365 days a year, and especially for those 3.5 hours inside of a stadium on fall Saturdays. If a person who looks like Sammy Watkins but doesn't play football spends an hour before a game randomly walking through tailgates, he's viewed with suspicion to a large degree. I think that's fair to say. How 100%. Much of that is on the minds of current, or just of football, African-American football players in general, that that dichotomy. Like, I'm not talking about just Clemson, of course. I mean, we're talking about mostly deep, like Southeastern, but certainly not limited to the whole country. How much of that is recognized sort of amongst players who love playing football? They love the experience, but in the back of their minds, they're like, man, this doesn't make sense.
It's painful. And what you do to cope with that is you ignore it and you pretend like that's not the reality. That's all you can do. And every one of us know that, and we still have to exist. That's why I mean about the white folks that are feeling targeted right now. It's like, welcome to the freaking club. And it's like, and then people won't give black folks credit for being able to endure. Like when like DJ did nothing wrong. He forgave, he showed grace, and there are going to be people that are mad at DJ. And he didn't even enter this. If Canyon Total doesn't bring this up,
right?
DJ never brings it up possibly in his lifetime. When Nuke Hopkins went through what he went through, when he had to talk about his experience at Clemson, people were mad at the guy that kept it quiet and wasn't a distraction for the whole time and worked his way through it. That's the guy you're mad at, the guy that didn't disrupt a moment of your precious Clemson football. Nuke Hopkins was a grown man, far beyond his years, by sucking it up, putting his head down, and going to work. And people still were angry with him. He's not a good teammate. He's not this. And I'm like, no, he was actually the best teammate ever. He was actually the best player ever. He was actually the best human being ever, because he never said a word. He never, during your whole time of getting to enjoy Nuke Hopkins, you never heard how he really felt and how he felt treated. Credit him. No one credited him for that. You just heard the negative of why he's bringing it up now. Well, he's asked a direct question, and he's always who he is, honest. But he didn't initiate that conversation. He didn't complain while it was happening, which he had every right to, because I knew of it, and he had every right to complain. But as a man, that's not who he is, and he did not get credit for enduring. And black folks today, to your example, will never get credit for enduring. And now even the ones that are realizing, and my white brothers and sisters that are realizing that this stuff's happening, some of them are now just saying, wow, I can't believe that this has been actually your life. But then you still have some that won't even give the ones credit for enduring, that haven't complained one bit. If you still want to be evil and you still want to be angry in your space, at least give the guys credit. Like the DJ Greenlee that did not complain. He kept it in-house. He was a soldier. He was a teammate. He protected the program. And there were morons that I saw that was mad at DJ.
For a grown man who... Now, let's make clear. Certainly, there's a segment of players from that 2017 team who would not have talked to the media about it, who definitely want to still keep it in-house. Okay, that's fine. That's their prerogative. But on the other side, if DJ Greenlee, a grown man, is called and asked about it and merely states his version of the truth as a matter of fact, that's perfectly fine too. And why wouldn't 100%.
It be? Yeah, because if he doesn't, and he doesn't tell us exactly what happened, then someone else is going to tell us a distorted version. Like when Tuttle said, a coach called a player the N-word. And so you want us to be stuck with that story?
Right.
Or you want us to be stuck with the truth, which is happen to be much less worse. So I'm all for the truth. Even if the truth ends up being worse, let's get it out. Let's work through it. Let's hash it out. Let's heal. Let's address whatever it is. And I know I'm saying a lot, but people need to listen a lot. They need to hear this stuff because it's hard. It's not fun. It doesn't make black folks perfect. It doesn't make white folks imperfect. It is what it is in this area. And I think we need to physically get together and fix this, not with words, not with scripture, not with anything. We need to do the scripture. If you want to use scripture, because I'm a I'm a God person, I'm a Jesus person, I prefer speaking less and doing the gospel, doing the word that was said, not just telling people what it said. And that's where I am right now.
Man, this is great. I asked for 20 or 30 minutes, and you gave me a lot more. So I got Patrick Sapp as well on this conversation.
Great.
So
great guy. Tell him I said hi when that's another great guy that I think his voice isn't heard enough in the Clemson. Tell him I said his voice isn't heard enough in the realm of Clemson, and I hope he gives you some good stuff as well.
All right, man. We're just one stop on your on your many stops for the day, media tour. So you're in demand, and I appreciate you giving us some of your time, man.
Anytime, brother. Anytime.
Harris Flooring has been a major part of the facilities enhancements over at Clemson, not just with athletics, but also at the university level. And we are thrilled that they are a part of the Dubcast as a sponsor. Since 1947, the Junkins family and Harris Flooring have provided a unique shopping experience through value in their services, developing the right product solutions, and delivering on their promises. To check out some reviews on their work, just go to their Facebook page, Harris Flooring America. Rave reviews, just first class all the way. Phone number 864-642-6183. If you're a business owner and your business involves credit card processing, you need to reach out to Tandem Innovative Payment Solutions. A lot of different ways that Tandem can improve your bottom line by shaving off some of those expenses. In addition to processing credit card payments, Tandem also manages inventory, schedules staff, tracks sales, gains insight into customers, and gets transaction reports. With Tandem, you're not a number, you're a neighbor. Learn more about Tandem at tandempayment.com. Okay, now shifting to our conversation with Patrick Sapp. Here we go. Okay, joined by my friend Patrick Sapp. How you doing, man?
I am doing good, as good as I can be. But yeah, everything's good, man. How about yourself?
Doing well. So I came up with this idea yesterday just to listen and learn more, or to allow everybody who listens to this to maybe learn something from, get different perspectives. I had Harold Coleman, Dutch Coleman, on for the first half of this podcast, and we talked a lot about what's going on at Clemson right now. So I just want to, beyond that, the more the larger issues going on right now, I'd just like to hear your thoughts and perceptions of what's going on as an African American, as a former athlete, and just as a member of the community, a recognized member of the community.
Yes, I appreciate the opportunity. I've given a lot of thought to this, especially with today's climate, the things that happened here recently in this country, kind of how people are responding to it. And when I say people, I mean everybody of all races responding to what's happening. But more or less, my thoughts always are solution-oriented. And so for me, it's about, identifying where the problems are, listening, coming up with a plan. But I hope what's different this time around is that we actually have some things that we execute to make this change that it seems like we're all recognizing needs to happen this time around. So for me, doing any of these podcasts or conversations or talks, I'm always about how can we educate, how can I be educated, but more importantly, what's next, and being clear and precise in that. So I appreciate your opportunity speaking with me about this. And yes, there's some troubling times. It's something that you and I, with our age, we've seen before. Sad to say, we've seen it a number of times. But I would like to go before the thoughts about what I think about policing in this country to the men that are police and women that become police, they're people first. And so with every job, we bring our own thoughts, experiences, prejudice to that position. We bring our own life thoughts and feelings to a job. And so, I just don't I want to broaden this conversation out to America, this world, and the vision of that and what that takes to and how it kind of navigates down to a specific job, being a policeman, and then that interaction that happened. I think anybody, to me, that lives today, that is breathing, living, walking this earth, cannot say with any doubt that we have a race issue in this country. If people are still on the other side of that conversation, then you know what? They are a part of the problem. So let's just be clear in that we have true race issues, racism in this country. And it is playing out, and it has played out through my life, and it's playing out now. I think the difference, and a lot of people have identified this, is that the stories that a lot of these minorities have been saying years before I was born, now, when I was a teenager, a kid, their interactions that was happening with law enforcement and other things, where everybody said before the video camera, wasn't happening. But now we see it happens. You can comply. You can do whatever the police tell you to do. You can go and you could not have a weapon and still be killed, still be harmed, still be things planted on you, drugs, etc. And so when we know that is the truth, why is that? And for me, I don't think every last one of those situations that happen is, quote unquote, the term that we use to say what racism is. I think a lot of people think about black men, black people in this country, is that we are criminalized, we are guilty, and then we have to be proven innocent. If someone makes a complaint about a person of color, that complaint is valid before it's proven. I think if you really look at what happened with the young lady in New York City in the park, for her to say and know that if I say as a black man harassing me, that she would get a bigger response from the police than if she just said a man is harassing me. She knew that. She's an ordinary woman. She's not law enforcement. But she knew what America is by saying the emphasis on there's a black man harassing me in the park. That will get an immediate response and reaction from law enforcement. That is dangerous. With Floyd, they thought he passed a fake $20 bill. So instead of having a conversation, he's already guilty. And it escalated into what it escalated into. And if I'm innocent and the police is telling me I'm guilty and treating me in a disrespectful way, we can say totally comply to that. But that brings about a point in you to where you feel like I'm being unjustly treated because I'm not guilty. I'm innocent in this situation. And so we have to be mindful of that. But what I want to say before the policing thing is that we do have a problem. I've had a lot of my white friends and colleagues reach out to me over the last couple of weeks, saying I'm with you. What can I do? Something needs to change. What can I do? And I've thought about that question. What can I do? What could I do? Because this is not a black problem. This is not a minority problem. And that's what we got to understand. To me, Dr. King and a lot of folks, if you look at the history, was not successful until you saw in Alabama when you saw white folks getting beat and dogs sicked on them the same way black people was getting treated. And when people saw that around the world, saw that national, is when change and the support Dr. King got at that point. So for my white brothers and sisters, jump in this, be a part of it, be outspoken about it. That's what you can do. Don't just send me a private text message or a conversation or a phone call to me. Be outspoken. When you see things being unjust, then be that justice for those people. Don't stand on the sideline. Get in the fight, because minorities are a part of this country. We are Americans. If it affects one American, it affects all of us. If it affects a subset of Americans, it affects all of us. So if you say this doesn't exist in my community, then again, you're wrong. It does exist in your community. You might not have to confront it, but it exists. So confront those things. Be a part of it. Be a part of the conversation. And here's the other thing that I would say. And I can understand it, because I don't want my white brothers and sisters to think that, oh my God, I got to feel guilty for other white people, because some white people treat black people the way that they happen. Because the police did this to black folks, I need to feel guilty. I need to feel like I just need to, to ask the question, what can I do? I don't want to guilt nobody into anything. We don't want that. That's not what we're saying. We just want a country that my sons, myself, we have the same equal opportunities, the same equal ideas and thoughts that can manifest, and treatment in the system itself and just in life in general. My background, man, I wasn't around any white folks until I got to Clemson. I didn't go to, my high school was all black, for the most part. Elementary school was all black. And a lot of my experiences as far as white teammates from a majority standpoint, university from a majority standpoint, was my experience at Clemson. But I came with my eyes open. I didn't have any thoughts of how I think white people are this, white people are that, or my parents, and I say this in a very meaningful way. My parents was very strategic in telling me and teaching me that we are just people. And I know that may sound cliche, but by them being that way with me, it allowed me to come to Clemson with an open mind and heart and not prejudge anybody. And I have to say, for 90% of my experience there, it was good and positive. And if you look at my life now, a lot of my close friends of my daily walk in life is being real and honest, is more white than it is black in who I'm around. My business life is that way. A lot of my personal life is that. And so for me, that experience and not coming in with any prejudgment was beneficial, and I think really shaped the way I view things. So as parents, we're very powerful in changing this narrative in this country. It ain't that I just have to have a conversation with my son, you got to be careful, because you already at 16, you're 6'3", 230 pounds. So you're going to be intimidating to people. You're going to be intimidating to police. You get pulled over. Don't do this. Don't do that. Make sure you comply. Make sure you put your hands where they're clear. All these things I got to tell him on a daily basis. You got to be, you got to be better than your counterparts. You can't be just as good. You got to be better. Well, I would say this to my white brothers and sisters. That's the same conversation that you need to have with your children. Don't stand by and let a friend or a colleague or a teacher be racist. Don't you be a part of that. Make sure you are conscious on how you treat people that have less or that don't have the privilege. And that is an important conversation to have, because a lot of these kids, man, they're having those conversations on their own. They're having them. And those conversations can be negative or they can be positive. You can't. They're too connected now. Kids are on the computer at 6 years old, 5 years old. So that's a part of the solution right there. All of us can have conversations and make sure our kids are different. And then I think we got to check ourselves. Just check my daily thoughts. Check my thoughts about black folks. Those conversations we had is about, we could talk about a Clemson game or Clemson environment to where I may be worshiped because I'm a Clemson football player and an ex-player and a current player, whatever the situation may be, but my family members aren't. I can have dreads and be on the team and be accepted, but my brother or sister that has dreads that nobody knows their name isn't accepted. We live that. We experienced that. And so we're not disconnected from our families. I've been fortunate to have a life that is different than a lot of my family, but I still connect and love my family. So it hurts me when they're treated different, because don't nobody know their name. Don't nobody know who they are. They're not welcome because they aren't an athlete, just because of their skin color. That's hurtful. That is painful, and that's resentful. And that is the reality of a lot of what student athletes go through. That's a part of what a lot of our country feels. LeBron James has family that are back in Cleveland. That is not LeBron James, but that are profiled, that are guilty until proven innocent, if they are allowed to be proven innocent. So it's a very deep thing that runs deep, that is going on for a long time. That people are out in the streets and they're pissed off about it now, and things that happen, like what happened in Minneapolis, brings that back to the forefront in a very graphic way. And you're seeing these folks react the way that they're reacting out, rioting in the streets and protesting and all of those things. I just hope that, man, is that we don't go back to, this is horrific. Yeah, things need to change. And then 2 weeks from now, we're on to the next thing. It's forgotten, and all we talk about is the cities being burned and the people that looted and the people that rioted. And the point of it all goes to the wayside, which I don't condone any of that. But I can tell you this, I do understand it. I can understand the frustration, because, you can only get smacked so many times before you're going to react and smack back. And so I think you're seeing some of that.
What about the destruction? Are you, are we condemning enough the property damage? And I mean, we just down in Charleston, sort of close to home. I mean, restaurant, people have their whole life savings, destroyed. A Family Dollar was burned to the ground.
Right.
I'm wondering. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely condemn the looting and the rioting. Solves nothing, never has, never will. But I also think we have to be educated enough and wise enough to know that I hope people can understand the separation of the folks that are protesting and the folks that are out there rioting and looting. Because if you really look at how things are, they're two different people. They're two different people. The rioting and looting is happening a lot of times late at night, or was happening late at night, still is in New York City. That's a different subset of folks than the folks that are out there walking with police officers and other folks during the day. So I think that's why I say I don't want people to get lost and caught up on the rioting and the looting, because there aren't the people that want solutions. Those aren't the folks that started protesting. They aren't the folks that came out and saying, we're in support of change. And if you look at it now, you have a lot of the people that are protesting stopping and fighting and detaining folks that are looting and rioting. So it's almost like and when I'm saying this, and I want to preface this by saying, it's the same way that Colin Kaepernick took a knee and then everybody hijacked his message to say it's against the military, which absolutely dog-blasted, false, and a lie, and a way not to deal with the truth. But they hijacked his message saying it was about the flag and it was about veterans. That is a bull-faced lie. And again, it's not an opinion. It's not an opinion that I have. It's not an opinion that someone else has over this or that. It is the dang on truth that it had nothing to do with disrespecting the flag. It had nothing to do with disrespecting our veterans and folks that have fought for this country for us to have freedom. It was actually a lot of in support of that. And he tried to do it peacefully. The NFL shut him down, which they missed an opportunity. They failed and caved to our president on doing that. And guess what? We could have been further along in this conversation if we could have followed his lead and saying, you know what, let's talk about this. But everybody fell in and jumped in. A lot of my friends, a lot of people I know jumped in that conversation to shut him down, to ignore what he was taking a stance for. And we're back here now. Who knows what could have came out of having conversations from what he was doing? Who knows where we would be as a country? But we always do that. We change the narrative to fit and villainize somebody that's trying to do it peacefully. Dr. King was no exception. He was hated during his time, but now look at what we do. Martin Luther King Day, everything else. But everybody during his time said, why don't he protest differently?
Right.
Why is he marching? Oh my God, he's race baiting, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing they said about Colin Kaepernick. He's race baiting. People are race baiting. I understand it. People said it in the 60s. We understand it needs to be some change, but it's a different way to go about it and do it. Well, what way is that? Please, somebody give me a solution. What way is it? If it's not the protest, to start to bring attention to it, what other way are we going to do it?
What's that like to send your son out as he goes off driving, and you have to worry about, you have to go through a checklist of things to do to make sure he doesn't, just the fear of him. I can't really imagine. Of course, anytime you send your kid off, you're worried about if he or she's going to come back. But I don't think that when my girls are driving, I'm going to be worried about them being mistreated by a cop.
And the thing about it is, it's enough dang on stress that the child is operating a vehicle anyway.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It's like, oh my God, are they speeding? Is they, using turn signals? Are they, are they texting while driving? You got all that to already worry about, but then it's the interaction of somebody else. Well, again, we live through a lot of our own experiences, right? And so, I mean, I've been profiled a number of times in my life, stopped for no reason. It's probably the last time that happened to me was probably, I don't know, about 4 years ago.
Good kid, tell me what happened.
And I was actually on a Clemson trip, headed to North Carolina. And I was on 25 going up through Greenville because something was going on with 85 at the time. I was going to cut over. But anyway, it was a black Suburban following me. And I thought, you know, I didn't even know it was the police, right? And I'm in a tie and a dress shirt. I mean, and I'm in a rental car because I'm working. And it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But I'm driving, and all of a sudden the Suburban is, I could see it kind of just a little normal, close to me than normal. So I'm like, you know, who the heck is this? And they was just kind of driving aggressively behind me, and this went on for probably 4 miles. And they get, all of a sudden, they get up and they speed up to my passenger door to about that car length on the side of me, and then immediately hit the brakes, drop behind me, and cut the lights on. Now, I'm not speeding, not doing anything. And so I pull over, and immediately for me, I wasn't speeding, so I was like, what did you pull me over for? And he was like, your seatbelt wasn't on. And it was, and it was on at that time. And I said, and I grabbed the seatbelt. I said, my seatbelt's on. He's like, nah, it wasn't on. I pulled up and I said, it was on. He said, you must have just put it on. I'm like, okay. I see license registration. All right. I'm like, it's a rental car. Get my license. And he goes back for 25 minutes at least. So I'm getting angry at this point because I'm just sitting in the car. I got a meeting, and I know there's nothing wrong. License not suspended, you know. So he was waiting for another police officer. So another car pulls up, and he walks to my passenger door, and the other cop comes back, and he was like, Miss Sapp, do you mind stepping out the car? And coming to the back. And I'm like, what? I'm like, for what? I said, okay. So I take the seatbelt off, come to the back of the car. And this is his next words to me. He says to me, I've been doing this for a long time, and you're acting so nervous like you got a dead body in the trunk. This is what he says to me. And I'm like, what? I said, I'm nervous because I didn't even know you was a police. I see this truck follow me like they go rob me or kill me or something. I said, so yes, I was nervous. You followed me, and then you pulled me over. I've been sitting here 30 minutes. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And he was like, well, do you mind if we search your car? And I just looked at the guy, and I literally paused, and I just looked at him. I said, so you make up a reason that you pulled me over for my seatbelt. I said, now you say I'm acting nervous like I got a dead body in the trunk, and now you want to search the car. I said, for what reason? He said, well, you just acting real suspicious and nervous. And I said, yeah, I'm nervous because, yeah, I'm interacting with an officer that I don't know that pulled me over for no reason. I said, yeah, I'm a little nervous. And so I said, you know what? I said, man, I ain't got nothing to hide. You want to waste your time, search the car, search the car. Search the car. Of course, they didn't find anything. Give me my license back. Don't give me a ticket. And just said, you know, have a nice day. And I hear the other officer ask him, is that the Patrick Sapp that played at Clemson? Now, after they done kept me there for 45 minutes, and I just grabbed my stuff, and I actually took his badge, and I'm like, you know, I'm going to file a complaint. Because you pull me over for no reason. You have me on the side of the road for almost an hour. and you don't give him a ticket. Like, what are you doing? But that was last 5 years right there. I mean, and I live, this is me. But for my son is that, he's a big kid and he's just turned 16 in May. So he's not a mature kid, and you may look at him and think he's way more mature than he is, or older than he is. So I just worry for him, the interaction. And he's a great kid, so I don't expect him to do anything crazy. But I also think my son is, he's naive. He hasn't experienced anything in life like that. So that's what I fear for him, is just him being so naive and the interaction that could get himself in trouble in a situation. And again, I'm not saying every cop is bad. I'm not saying that policemen just by themselves is bad. But I do think systematically, some things that are built in this country, in this culture, in our beliefs, that people take that to a job that they can be the judge and the jury, and they can be the folks that can exert power over you that is not normal. And so taking those things to that job, I think what makes that dangerous, and what makes a lot of things that happen in Minneapolis happen. Because to me, that man felt like Mr. Floyd was less than him, that he was a dog in the street, a thug, somebody that can be treated with no dignity and no respect. And that started before he was a police officer. Those beliefs came before that. And we, as a country, we harbor those feelings and those emotions. And it's like anything else, man. We always, even just being a normal person, with a normal quote unquote job, we have to check ourselves emotionally and mentally. And that's something that we can all do a better job of. Black and white, whatever color you are, is checking ourselves mentally to really be honest about who we are and our thoughts and our beliefs, and go out to seek change within ourselves. We're never the same. We should always be growing. And that's one thing I've been privileged with my life, is to live out in California, to live out in Arizona, experience different cultures and people and race and beliefs that are different than mine. That's what I enjoyed about coming to Clemson from Florida, rural, southern place that a lot of people got a lot of different thoughts and beliefs than I had. But that's what makes us better, what makes us grow, what makes us accepting, what makes us be able to have a conversation with a 90-year-old Southern white woman or man being from an inner city, or vice versa. If we're not made like that, to me, that's what life is. If you are incapable of sharing your space and time with people that are different than you, that think different than you, that view the world differently than you, and be okay with that, then you're part of the problem, in my opinion. If you can't do that, you're part of the problem. So you gotta live a little more if you're incapable of doing that. So I mean, I think that can solve a lot of it if we think about this whole race thing and inequalities in that way. And a lot of people won't do that. A lot of people can't do it. A lot of people are so uncomfortable doing that. So
happy to have Founders Federal Credit Union on board as a sponsor with us. If you've been to a sporting event in Clemson, you've probably heard about Founders already. They are the official credit union partner of the Clemson Tigers. In addition to that, all Clemson faculty, staff, and students are eligible for membership as well as IPTAY members. Matt Gross is a proud Clemson alum and the vice president for the Clemson market for Founders Federal Credit Union. Matt's office is located beside the Walmart Neighborhood Market on Old Greenville Highway in Clemson. For more information, go to foundersfcu.com. I was at I guess back 2004, 2005, like my first or second year covering Clemson and living up here. After the game, my wife and I went to a tailgate with some friends, and we were a lot younger back then, of course, and so it was like a fraternity type event over, I guess, right over there, Explorers, whatever it was called back then, right across from Lot 1. And there was a black guy who was sweeping up some of the parking lot, and I overhear someone near me say, "What's that N-word doing here?" And ever since then, I've struggled to wrap my mind around the religion of devoting your life 365 days a year and your money to watching a bunch of largely African Americans play a game and then turning around and after that game saying, "Oh, what's that N-word doing sweeping up this parking lot?" It's hard to reconcile, honestly. And that's not just at Clemson either, to be clear. We're talking about at a lot of places.
Right.
And everywhere.
Yeah, and we got to be honest. And I think, Larry, that's why, me and you've had a relationship for a long time. I think that's what attracts is that a lot of people, you and I talk open and honest about things. And I think that's what's needed. It may offend, it may not offend, but change doesn't happen in comfort. If it's comfortable, it's not going to change. Why change comfort? If you're comfortable, why are you going to change situation? You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing that we got to realize. It is not a comfortable thing. Change doesn't happen in that. If you're trying to change a culture, go back and ask Coach Sweeney, how did he have to change the culture of Clemson football? It wasn't easy and comfortable. If it was, then it would have been working. So, but once you establish it, it's different. But you don't change that. And so you got to be conscious about it, and you got to have open dialogue about it. I love Clemson, but Clemson has its issues and problems. No different than no other university. And I think that's one thing that I read around, and I want people to hear what I'm about to say. It's, if you create a narrative that something is perfect, to me, that something is doomed. It will not survive and stay because it is operating on a lie. And so when we critique America, when we talk about America, everybody, I should say everybody, that's a lie. A lot of people goes to say you're unpatriotic. I would say you're more patriotic because you want the place that you love to be the best it could be. So, but if you bring an issue up against America, oh my God, you need to lead a country. You are patriotic. No, I'm thankful for America. I've been around the world. Yes, America is better than even the places I've been that are considered paradise. I love home more than I love those places. But America isn't perfect, and we don't do it right all the time. But I'm not doing it any justice if I never speak out about those things that aren't right. How is that going to change and become a part of the good and not the bad if we don't acknowledge it? Clemson is the same thing. Man, I am so thankful for Clemson. Clemson changed my life, impacted my life more than anything that I've had an opportunity to be a part of in my life outside of my children. Clemson gave more to me than anything else. But Clemson ain't perfect, and Clemson don't do it right. And that's what we have to acknowledge in order for it to be the best it can be. And people have to accept the criticism and not turn away from it and say, you know what, they just disgruntled, they lying, da, 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 da. Accept that and say, how can we be better? That's when the change comes. But people will not do it. And it creates an environment of failure. And if any history of all of this, if any recent history, I should say, that came about, in no way, shape, form, I'm comparing Penn State to Clemson. But everybody turning a blind eye at Penn State to protect Penn State. Look at what happened. It happened. It came out. The truth came out. And unfortunately, to me, that's what killed Joe Pa in a lot of ways, sad to say. But they could have addressed that and saved a lot of victims before that. And again, I'm not saying Clemson's Penn State, but there's just one place where they protected it so much. We don't have those issues at Clemson, but we do have some race issues at Clemson. No doubt about it. We do have some issues at Clemson that have plagued and played with a lot of our student athletes that are now former athletes. And people have to realize, as always, and I hear the narrative of whenever a former student talks about their experience at Clemson, and they ain't talking about it in 100% perfect and happy way, that they're disgruntled or they didn't play enough or why they should shut up or et cetera, et cetera. No, that's not right. They're giving their time and their energy and their effort to that place. And they're giving their lives when they could have signed letter of intent to a lot of other places. And they love it because they work and they bred more so than a lot of other people that just attended Clemson. You're actually an employee of Clemson when you are a student athlete. You're giving blood, sweat, and tears and time to this place, which again, I'm not saying it just benefits the university. It benefits these young men and women just as much as it benefits the university. But in that, coaches can create an environment to where truths aren't either being addressed or told. And at the end of the day, a lot of these young men and women are minorities in collegiate athletics. And that's every sport, that's in every athletic department around the country. And I think it's just as important to lend an ear, to have conversation and value their conversation and create an environment to where they can be heard and valued and speak up about their feelings and their hearts. To me, that has to be as welcome as we welcome making A's and B's, as we welcome academic success center, as we welcome career fairs and everything else. That has to be a part of the environment and the narrative too. And that is what, I think a lot of times is missing in a lot of these universities and cultures and things like that. Not to be a distraction, because we can't run away from and change the narrative and change the truth about something. If somebody speaks up, it's a distraction. If a kid makes a political statement or political post, it's a distraction. It's not a distraction. Why can't a 19-year-old have a political point of view that they want to express in their platform? Why can't that? How is that a distraction to the team? If I want to protest, how is that a distraction? It's not. And I think we wash it away with distractions, and I just don't agree with that. I just think that the reality of it, we all got to deal with it, and that's just not the education for our black men and women. That's the education of our white brothers and sisters that in every other race that we participate in and that we line up against, that we're teammates of, teammates with. That's for all of us. And I think when we start to look at it, it's for all of us and not just we're going to cater to this group of people. I think the conversation and the acceptance of that will be different. I've coached a little bit in different things. And Larry, I can tell you this, I always say I'm an educator first. I think so much about coaching is about educating. And not in the terms of reading and writing and arithmetic education, but life education. To me, that's the first job of a coach. Is this person going to be a better person regardless of wins and losses? And when I say a better person in every aspect, not just a GPA, not just having 2 morals instead of 5 morals when you leave my program, but actually well-rounded about life and people. To me, that's what it's about. And I think that's what Coach Sweeney is loved about. And I think that's what's great about him. He has a high moral compass. He cares about these young men to no end, and it's all genuine and it's all real. We have to add in, and we have to have the conversations, and we have to create an environment to where these young men can grow as individuals and speak up and feel heard and feel like they can be a part of the world when they leave Clemson and participate in the injustices and participate in the protests as they want to and feel strong and comfortable about that, being outspoken of something that they feel is wrong. Like, I want them to leave with those experiences and that knowledge base and that comfortability to be able to be those types of men and women. I think we have to help produce those types of people.
You feel like that part of it hasn't been nurtured as well as or as much as
I think that's where the room of improvement is.
Yeah.
I think that's where the room for growth is. No doubt. I think that, and I get it. I mean, I get the common goal when you're talking about so much pulling at kids and so many kids you gotta that's on a team and so much it takes to win and so much distractions out there and all of that goals that you're fighting as a coach. I always say the hardest job to me as a coach is focusing my team on a daily basis, getting them to focus on the task at hand for today and then starting over tomorrow. That's the hardest thing to get done to 18, 19, 20-year-old people. I mean, they're high in emotions, high in thoughts, high in everything. And so you got to focus that every day. And so you can't do it all, but you got to try to do it all. You know, and you can't fix everything, but damn sure you got to get in the fight to try to fix it. And that's just how I see it.
I'm assuming you saw Trevor Lawrence's message last Friday.
Yes.
I'll just read it here just because I think it's so great. But for a 20-year-old college kid to put it this way, but I'm sorry. There has to be a shift in the way of thinking. Rational must outweigh irrational. Justice must outweigh injustice. Love must outweigh hate. If you put yourself in someone else's shoes and you don't like it, if you don't like how it feels, that's when you know things need to change. I'm siding with my brothers that deal and continuously deal with things I will never experience. The injustice is clear, and so is the hate. It can no longer be explained away. If you're still, quote-unquote, explaining it, check your heart and ask why. That was just so impressive.
Man, it was. And I tell you this, I've talked with a lot of guys about his comment. Just a lot of former guys that I keep in touch with, and everybody was impressed by that. I mean, some guys was deeply moved by that don't know Trevor personally or anything outside of what's on the field. Just like, man, this dude is unbelievable to make a comment like that. Because, I mean, that's a strong statement, and it's a very clear and direct statement. But I would add to that it is the absolute truth. If you're still denying that this is an issue, then you need to check your heart. If you're still questioning people's motives behind wanting change and blaming a political party or media or somebody that this is overhyped, that this is not genuine and real, then you need to check your heart. That's what he's saying. This is real. This is real life in this country right now. So I commend him for standing up. I haven't read many players currently make a strong statement like that at all. So I was very proud of him for stepping up. And I can tell you this, being in the locker room, being a quarterback myself, being a leader of a team, those guys in the locker room love him even more. They already love him, but they love him even more because, and we all want to do the right thing. We all want to be on the right side of the solution. And we all want everybody to feel the love that I may feel. And so him saying that, I think is a good lesson for all of us to adhere to.
What did you think of Dabo's statements on Monday? He went on a long and heartfelt and definitely a Dabo sort of, not sermon, that's a bad word, but just explanation of where he is. Just curious if whether you thought he hit all the right notes in what he said.
I think, Coach, knowing him personally, knowing him as long as I have, we're friends. He's as genuine as he comes, and he is as real as it gets. And again, that's what I respect and love a lot about him, because he's not afraid to live that and say it and speak it. And I'm not neither. And I think that's why I like him a lot, and I think that's why he likes me a lot. I'm gonna say kind of what's on my mind. If it gets me in trouble, not get me in trouble. I think and I've kind of, me personally, I felt Coach could have been a little stronger in his message, with what he said. But I understand it. I understand his point of view of life. I understand his point of view of his job and where he sits. I would rather him have said more in a direct manner. With that said, I think what he said was fine. He understands it's a problem. And I know if he could change it, he would. I would like to engage Coach at some time. I know he's busy. I know me and him, we saw each other recently, but both of us are so dang on busy. We don't cross paths as much as we used to. But I do think it's platforms for us to take and make and do in this whole thing. That's something I'm sitting back now figuring out what's my next moves in all of this. And I would love to engage Coach because, man, that dude is passionate about life. He loves everybody. It's real and it's genuine and it's in his heart. And I know he would put his time and effort and energy into making and helping this change. So I hope me and him can chat it up sometime soon and spend some spend some time together to talk about this, along with some other folks that I want to bring into this conversation. But I think that, again, about his comments personally, I think they could have been more direct, but I also understand being in his situation and being where he sits. It's hard to do that. You have to think from a 360 view. And sometimes it is better with wisdom to draw in more people than it is to draw in a few people. And so sometimes when you're at the top, you have to speak that way of, how can I draw everybody in without offending? And then hopefully once I draw people in, now we can have some solution. So that's kind of my own personal thoughts about it.
Lastly, do you have an opinion on the most recent news about Danny Pearman, DJ Greenlee? Pearman doesn't appear that he called Greenlee the N-word. It was more he was mimicking Greenlee, and maybe and it sounds like probably even in his way saying don't say that. Do you have a?
Well, I don't, and the only reason I want is because I think it's been so much said about. I shouldn't say so much said about this. I'm just unclear as to what really happened, how it happened, and so normally I'm sure I'll end up talking to some of these guys at some point and figuring out really who was there and what happened at that time. But I know Coach Pearman, known Coach Pearman a long time. I know Greenlee, and I know he's a awesome kid, awesome family. And I don't see that being Coach Pearman from the guy that I know. So I don't know. I know by me playing football, as long as I play sports and football, that, hey, you can get hella heated out there sometimes, and arguments and fights occur, and you may say things at times. Well, I know you can say things at times that you don't mean. But there's also a limit to everything that you can say, regardless of how angry you get. That's why we're considered grown people, right? Grown men is discernment and wisdom to not just say whatever comes to your mind or say anything because you're angry. But I won't make a comment on it, man, just to be honest, because I just don't know really. I don't know enough, haven't read enough to kind of have an opinion about it. And so I just think with that though, is it should never be used. And I'm not a proponent of athletes using it, brothers centered against brothers. I don't like it. I hate it. I despise it. And so I don't say it. I don't say it in any terms of endearment with my brothers or in anger with my brothers. So I don't want to hear it. And that's something I'm around coaching. I don't want to hear you constantly saying that. So if he was saying it with somebody else and they're saying it in practice and in person and all that, then to me, coaches need to correct that and not let that be a part of the environment. If they're hearing, if they're allowing the players to just talk like that with each other, then to me, that needs to be corrected. And so therefore, a coach shouldn't have to hear it and coach shouldn't have to repeat it or say it. But I don't know enough about it, man, to have a true opinion about it.
Sure. Anything else on your mind?
No, I'll say this. The only thing that's on my mind right now is I would be hella pissed and, I wouldn't say non-forgiving if we as a country don't do something about what's going on and not let this just go because of the sake of time, and we just let it go because everybody done emotions died down and nothing changed. But I want this community, when I say this community, the upstate of South Carolina, Greenville, Clemson, Seneca, Anderson, everybody that loves and supports this place and community, to actively start to get involved and do damn things. People that speak privately, I want you to speak publicly. People that messages me or other friends, speak out loud about it. Do not allow anybody else or anything else like this just to go on and we're on to the next issue until this happens again. People are tired. People are hurt. Man, I can tell you this, Larry, was watching that video, it did something to me because, I don't know how spiritual you are, but I saw evilness in this person, man. It's just saying with a evilness with a pride mixed in it of him just telling y'all ain't nothing y'all could do about it. Y'all telling me to get off his neck. I'm going to just stay here as long as I can. This is trash beneath me. And that resonated so loud with me and how I feel like a lot of folks think about Black people. And it's so far from the truth. And I just want to be, and my kids and my brothers and sisters, to just be treated like everybody else. I think that's what everybody wants. Just treat me the same. Think about me the same. Have the same empathy that you have for other humans, for me. Have the same consideration. Think about my dignity. That's all people want. Nobody want a handout. Nobody want people to feel sorry. Nobody wants that. We just want it to finally change and start that process. So that's my charge to folks. You know me, man. I'm on the Police Foundation here in Greenville. That was my way of getting involved years ago when this happened. Let me be a part of the police and understand them. So I was on the Citizens Review Board here in Greenville serving. I'm still on the Police Foundation board right now. And community policing is something that I've been, charged to deal with and help come up with ways to do that here in Greenville. And I just want people to do the same. Get out there and participate, man. Let's be a part of change. I hope we can create some type of platform, some type of something where people can speak and be heard, and it has a resolution to it, and not just be lip service and not just be something, but actually some tangible things come about it. So I hope me and you could continue to talk and maybe come up with some ideas and share, and let's pull some folks together that we know. And let's all of it be in the gear towards solution, not just complaining, not just hurrah, hurrah, not just yelling, not just screaming, not just protesting. But our only goal is to help solve these problems. That's what I want to do.
Well, hopefully this could set the wheels in motion, not just with you and I, but others who are listening and who are inspired and are thinking of things in a bit of a different way now, based on the perspective of you and also Dutch Coleman.
Yes, I hope so. So I know Harold well. I didn't know he was on, so maybe I know me and him will probably talk and reach out to each other. And I know he's a long way from here, but some things, I know he's back and forth, so some things that maybe we can all discuss and put together.
Patrick, thank you so much. That was wonderful.
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate your time. I always appreciate you. Let's continue this work, man. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, that's a wrap. 2+ hours of great stuff. Every minute, I thought, fantastic. Thanks to Harold and Patrick Sapp. Thanks to our sponsors for their very generous support. And thanks to all of you in particular for listening. Everybody be good, be safe, and have a great rest of the week. Cheers.